Thank you everyone who is either online or in person with us for joining this idea of mine to launch not one, but a series of 10 podcast Peerty. Why do we call it Peerty? Is because I started a business called Meet Your Peers, right? So just trying to play some tongue in cheek. But on the other hand, it's really about gathering people together about a certain topic. So of course, if we're talking about millennials, I wanted to invite millennials to be in this group, with one exception. I will fill you in more. The whole idea is I am not going to be a moderator, so I'm not going to be asking questions like regular panels where they wait for me to ask a question and they respond. I want you to imagine like you were invited to somebody's wedding dinner and you were seated together by fours. Okay. And there will be some awkwardness, but you try to get to know each other to go through the night. This is what it's like.
Whose table at the wedding?
Oh, yeah. So the whole idea is, and really, it's almost like reality TV, isn't it? Because I'm putting them in the spot and making them talk to each other. And it was very intentional that we did not do this with any rehearsal. Right, there was no phone call in advance. Can we check in into each other's profile? In fact, they just got added to WhatsApp group literally today, and even then they had no time to look at it. So this is how we're going to do it. I hope that they will have a very, very interesting conversation. Now, why did I pick millennials? Because I hang out with people half my age, especially when I go to New York every year. This is a group that truly fascinates me. I mean, I even hosted an event, Women in 30s, because I remember when I was in my 30s, a lot of things happened. The most important decisions were made. And the moment I turned 41, my biggest decision was made, which is to retire. I did. It wasn't a dream. I did that. So therefore, I'm always very curious. But of course, the millennials of today is very different from our time in those days. So, and from the stereotypes that you guys have written, I can say I agree with all of them. And therefore, I prefer to hear it from the horse's mouth, okay? I want them to really kind of say what they feel. Enough of people talking about you, right? We don't have anything to say. So, to my extreme left is Natalie, and I picked her actually from a very special point of view, because she's an entrepreneur. So a lot of people know I'm obsessed about corporate professionals. Natalie used to work for big corporates, including Diageo, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Then she decided to be a founder, and that for me is one of the bravest decisions anybody can make. So I wanted to hear her point of view, because she took this decision a couple of years back. I will skip Soon first. His name ain't Soon, but we call him Soon for short. Then I'll jump to Gillian first. Gillian is probably at the other extreme of the spectrum. Sorry, I have to reveal that. So the whole idea, of course, is the millennial journey is an entire journey, isn't it? It's almost like a few generations into one. So I wanted also to hear from Gillian because she has been there and done that. She's gone through it. And of course, maybe she'll be going down some memory lane as well, as she hear the others. And then, of course, we have Gillian, as you know, works at corporate. In fact, she's the host of our event today from Service Now. And then Joshua, I wanted someone from a different sector, right? So not tech, so more in the investment space. And also, I wanted someone who is probably going to make a very big decision very soon, or make the big decision. So he will share his journey. And then now go back to Soon. So Soon is an anomaly today. He's actually a Gen Z.
Imposter.
No.
So by chronological order, he is a Gen Z, but I think he has a very old soul. So therefore, we would like to hear from him as well, so that I can complete my spectrum. Believe it or not, it was not easy to look for young millennials. I even had someone say to me, how can someone in their 30s work in a Fortune 500? I said, why not? When I was in my 30s, I worked for Fortune 500. I was already working for 500. So why that kind of discrimination? Anyway, I will now officially start our podcast. Now, this thing about the millennials is I want them to be as candid as possible, talk over each other, ask each other questions. the first topic I want you guys to embark on is that a lot of us, especially in Asia, are very shy to talk about. So it will be anything under the sun about money, right? Whether it's, are you a crypto believer, you invest in crypto, or you've made it so rich that you can quit your job, could be, right? Or, who manages the finances? Is it you or someone else? And have you made so much money that you could stop working for corporate and then, dabble and put your life at risk in some way to start a startup, right? So just go right in, guys. Whoever wants to take the lead and just chat away.
So the answer is yes. I think the interesting thing about money as a millennial, I find, is it wasn't enough to just chase a path to wealth or financial stability. I do believe our generation, and that's what drove me, I think we want to seek meaning and purpose. And that can't be about tokenism, like I've donated old clothes, so now I'm guilt-free, right? So I think it was about how can that become your day-to-day. I think the relationship with money is less survival, it's more meaning, and that sort of drives you to explore very sort of fearlessly, unconventionally, in various ways. And I think
I agree. I do think in Asia, people talk about money a lot more openly.
Yeah.
I actually find that was one of the most confronting things that I came up against when I moved to Singapore, and this was 9 years ago, so maybe it's evolved a little bit. But to have someone ask you on like sort of day 1 or 2 in the office, well, how much are you paying for rent? It was like, oh gosh, that would be quite a private thing in Australia or New Zealand to be sharing how much your expenses are. But here it's very, very open. And I think people do talk about money and they are wanting to compare often too. Like the relationship generally this culture has with money is quite competitive. And I think it's a lot of looking next door and wanting to compare yourself to whoever you're up against. I think for our family, the thought of money is much more, like you were saying, there's an end in mind. And someone said to me a very long time ago, you should set yourself up with an FU fund. So if someone cut you off tomorrow, you could walk away and be fine. And so that was always the thing, was get yourself to a point where it's sustainable. If you had to walk away tomorrow and live on the beach for the rest of your life, you've got a house, your mortgage is paid off, like you're comfortable. So it was a case of, I think, getting to that point for us, and now knowing that you could survive on less and, doing the backpacking around Europe with next to nothing and having those experiences means that everything else is kind of a cherry on top and sets up your family for their success. So it's much more about kind of giving back and setting other people up for success.
I think it's interesting to Nalini's point about seeking meaning. I think every generation is looking to achieve the same thing, which is to make the world a better place for the next generation. And you look back in time, and whether that's financial or the way that we live, technology, we're always seeking to improve. But I feel like for millennials, with money, the relationship, it's less about storing wealth, because quality of life for our future generations is not going to come from money.
Yeah.
You need to be able to generate your own wealth.
Yeah.
There's not going to be stacks of cash there for them. And so that, I guess, shapes my own view on money. So,
hence that fund. Just have it there, doing its thing for you.
Doing but not even that. Doing the backpacking without the safety fund there. But just going, the experience that I get is more important than sitting at home and working a 40-hour week.
Yeah.
So that I might be able to do that in the future. Or maybe my kids can.
Yeah, I think for me, my family kind of drilled in financial literacy into me since a young age. And I think something that I'm more conscious of is this thing called lifestyle inflation, right? Where the more money you make gets you more stress, and then you've got to spend more on that. So I think since young, I've had a kind of a principle in terms of saving, which is like 10% for insurance. I call it the 10, 40, 50. So 10% for insurance, 40% for transport, food, and 50% for savings and investments. Yeah, so that kind of sets you up for whatever storms that might come, as Jillian mentioned as well.
Very interesting. I have a 10, 25,
Okay,
5,
let's hear it.
and 60%. So 60 is your, and this came from very early on, same thing, drilled financial literacy, was told that live like there's no trust fund you're falling back on.
Yeah.
Once you're out of the house, you're out of the house. I think pretty much graduation was where parents felt a sense of responsibility. After that, they're like, hey, you can take a loan. And that sort of brought a great ethic very early on in life. I'd love to pass that on. Now that I've chosen parenthood, I would love to pass that on. And I speak a lot about it because I think too many people, my own peers from college, struggle with, hey, what point do you jump into entrepreneurship? Because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And my only advice to them has been, when you have a financial ramp of 12 months for yourself, now that could mean rent or ramen life. I mean, I never bought into the ramen life ever, because I think it's important that you get your foundations right when you jump into entrepreneurship, because it's already like eating glass, as Elon Musk calls it. It's literally chewing glass every day. Why would you want to stress about your survival? So the 60 came from saying, okay, this is what I have to spend, and you sort of restrict within that. And my 5% is the most interesting. I'll come to that in the end. My 25 was basically discretionary. So if you travel, you have entertainment, you want to go party,
Enjoy.
so you want to blow it all on booze nights, or you want to go travel internationally because you want your passport to look good, you make your choices within that 25% through the year. The 10% was savings, like I had a loan for a very long time, or then it converted into future savings, or what became my nest egg to take a plunge into entrepreneurship. And the last 5% was actually on self-improvement. I was very conscious about this from the start. In the start, it looked like salon and yoga. But eventually it became about, doing that course, like that paid course from Berkeley, or you want to go on and have like a Peerty membership, right? A lot of this becomes about, are you prepared to religiously put back that 5% for your future self? Because without that surface area of exposure, you're not sort of going to enjoy whatever you've set up for yourself next. So that 5% was an advice given to me by actually a very wise old great-grandmother in my family who's lived through so much. She said, never forget to invest in yourself, even if, as a woman, it meant, even if it's in your looks. Like, just be happy about it. If you like it, embrace it, right? So
I do think that's probably a difference in the stereotypes, as well as like that whole investment in self, and also being okay with spending the money, not just putting it all into savings for one day in the far distant future, and I'm not sure what it's there for. It's like, we're working really hard, we should also enjoy it. And there's a bigger element of that in our generation, I think.
And we also live in a time with technology where we can't escape work as much. So, that spending the money on that trip where you're now unavailable for emails and phone calls, it's actually...
Or even workouts. I mean, I'm so amazed at how little people, or how much people think about putting into a gym membership or subscribing to that app, right? Compared to, like, I don't know, going drinking with friends. Is that something you find people... I mean, at a larger scale, do they look at self-investment?
It's hard. Coming from Australia, people still invest in booze, but...
and themselves.
And themselves. But, no, there's definitely a focus on that, whether that be from a health perspective, or, as you said, from self-improvement through learning courses or that. Although I feel that in this part of the world, the academic is more focused.
More focused, Actually, that's fascinating. You just sparked something with booze in Australia, because Diageo, I mean, it's one of the drinks major, but my next company was LVMH. And joining a company which talks about luxury day in and day out as an employee was like, oh my God, where is all the money? Because as a employee in a luxury company, you kind of are blown by how little money is available for you to spend. It's actually funny. But a lot of ethos around why clients invested in luxury goods was so fascinating. I mean, for men, it could be stocks, and I'm not bucketing genders here. It's statistically what happens. A Birkin bag outperforms gold. That's a fact. It outperforms gold as an investment. So, I mean, the kind of lens you have around investments is actually pretty interesting too if you're thinking about the instruments of investment.
A young Josh would focus on, oh, what nice car can you buy? And that's a terrible decision.
Yeah.
It's depreciating even before you drive it out the door, right? So, but it's something that's important from, say, a young man's perspective. And then the maturity comes in. It's like, well, maybe I don't need to spend that much on a
Isn't
car.
it still true though? I mean, for me, the Uber revolution changed this currency of owning a vehicle so much.
I mean, in Singapore, it's hard to justify owning a vehicle.
Yeah.
Ooh, 3 small children justifies it.
Yes. That's difficult, right? You need those specific circumstances because it is just so expensive and in a lot of cases unnecessary. Obviously, young children. It's a very good reason. That's
To commute in Singapore.
yeah.
Yeah.
But certain parts of Australia,
You have to.
2 cars.
Yeah. More common.
Actually, how many of us own a car? I'm curious. Not just in Singapore, but yeah. But ever? Have you ever?
Yes. Of
Yeah,
course.
me too.
Rental.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Learned so many things like that. But I'm not going to let you off the money bit yet. Like you say, right? In Asia, we are very direct and we ask about money very explicitly. So maybe share some investments that you have made that has done very well and some investments that you made that has done terribly.
Oh.
That was coordinated. Oh.
I can think of 2 great examples. The ones I suppose that have gone very well for us as my husband and I, our first house we held on to, and like I remember at the time going, oh my gosh, we're stretching ourselves so much. This is a terrible idea. But we did it, and I think we fought really hard at that time, trying to pay off and get a little bit ahead. And we held onto that investment. We bought the house next door. We did so we've done well out of that investment, and I think that we still hold those properties today. The one that went terribly was a classic COVID situation where, when you get a little bit bored and you start going down a rabbit hole looking into different things and what can we do to keep ourselves busy while we're trapped on this tiny island with small kids. And we started looking into horses and then, bought 5% of this one or 2% of that one or whatever it was. Terrible idea. It was really fun to be able to go to the races and dress up at a time where we couldn't really go anywhere else, but dreadful investment.
Interesting. So no horses.
No more horses.
No more horses.
We're done with that. Yeah. I'll still go to the races to dress up, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about my best and worst on the spectrum. So
No, I can go. I actually started investing when I was 13 years old.
Oh.
So it's a game called Dota 2. Basically, back then in the days, it's World of Warcraft, and they had this marketplace where you could buy and sell items. So I started noticing that this rare item, when it was like Christmas or Halloween, people would shift their attention away, and then the price would drop. So I bought in, and then after that, I sold it at a 20% discount. 20% profit. I think that was like the first foray into investment, because I started to realize that, okay, like if we compare items in the game to real life, there's intrinsic values in companies, right? But then short-term volatility like tariffs or other AI disruptions shake up the market and people start panicking. So that was how I got my deepest lesson. Like, okay, people can say what they want in the short term, but if you invest in the fundamentals of a company and you believe in the thesis, then it will take you. Yeah. So that was the start. And then, I've been investing ever since. Firstly, through my father's investment account and now through my own as well. Yeah. So that's my way of trying to get some freedom as I hit 40 in the future or 50, where I can do a bit more things.
I mean, I did the classic Sydney thing of buying property.
Okay.
Completely leveraged, no cash up front, borrowed the stamp duty,
Wow.
borrowed the legal fees, everything. And it's been a fantastic investment because it's all upside.
Yeah.
Lived in it for 3 years while I was in Sydney.
Nice.
Now renting it out when in Singapore. And that's the danger. And maybe it's a difference in not getting into sort of professions and all that, but working in finance and being exposed to large amounts of debt. You kind of become desensitized to the idea. And so just using and abusing the debt, but leveraging and being able to buy things that you couldn't otherwise buy, which is almost the direct opposite of what I see in say, the crypto space, which is essentially another fiat currency. So it's something that I steered clear of. So when we go to the worst, steered clear of for a long, long time, despite countless friends and self-proclaimed experts saying, no, you've got to get in now, when it was very cheap compared to current prices. But then started to dabble in it a little bit over the last few years. And just every time I would go in, it would just drop. And then I'd go, oh, cold feet, get out.
Oh, no.
And the reason I held off so much is because there's just, from my own perspective, there's no intrinsic value in the coin.
Yeah.
Whereas, so investments for me, it's about that intrinsic value.
Yeah.
Just on the point,
I think my best investment, I was thinking real estate, but just when I did a mental scan, I was dabbling in stocks very early on, also because big part of my family legacy, grandfather onwards, were into stocks. So they gifted stocks for birthdays. They said, okay, I mean, they're just going to eat calories.
That's a really good present.
I know, right? It was not fun growing up because I'm like, Steve, I'm going on a trip with my friends. But they're like, no, we'll just put it in your whatever account and all that. It was not fun growing up, but later, I think those have appreciated. I think what it taught me was, again, I'm of Indian origin, as some of you might be able to tell. So I think it was a growth market. It was a growth economy. So in that sense, it turned out to be a fantastic instrument. My worst, I think, I stopped doing this 5 years ago. My worst investment, and it's a bit controversial, education. I've stopped investing in certifications, structured learning, it's crap. Because I think the world is changing so fast. There is so much volatility. All due respect to educators, I don't think they're keeping up pace with what's happening. So stop paying that 2K, 5K. Oh, I'm a complete student of YouTube, Instagram. Oh, I love Instagram. There's so much of education there. And I think, AI's changed a lot, but I'm very, very of AI, being a builder in AI. I do not base my learning in AI. But I think certificates have been my worst investment. Very, very poor returns.
I think that goes to another point where maybe millennials value education a little bit less. So our parents said, have to go to university, get a
We are
degree.
still the generation, actually. I think we started out thinking it matters. We felt tags matter.
Yes.
We bought into that whole rat race. And then into our 30s, we are like, nobody gives a shit.
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
Sorry. So it's so much of change in just our generation. We're dealing with such unprecedented amount of knowledge that's freely available, misinformation. Everyone has a voice. So I think that's very big in our generation. And I don't think Gen Z faces that. And I don't think our previous generation had to deal with social media or media the way we do.
But also, looping back to the subject of money, we're also the generation that had a significantly more expensive education than previous generations. I mean, I don't know about for you, but for my parents, their university was free. Wow. Covered by the taxpayer.
No.
Yeah.
Not
And that gap for the
it was
buying
all
a house
private.
is also enormous. Like we had sort of 6 to 8 times your salary. They had 2 or 3 times their salary. It was quite a big difference.
Yeah.
Not much. And I think India as a economy has not really changed. I think if you look at, so my father was an engineer, then I was an engineer. I think our lifestyles were, in fact, I'm stunned how much he managed to pack into whatever he earned and then he spent. There are way more kids than I do. So it's actually the same for me in that cultural sense. But yeah, it's I think it's more expensive in terms of interest rates and how long it takes for us to. So it's the other utility. I mean, the other spends, lifestyle spends have gone up. So we're not able to pay back as quickly as they were able to. I think that's a stress I see now my niece go through in her Ivy League education. So that's definitely scary, how expensive it's getting.
Yeah, I think the Generation Z, the Gen Z, are really like double checking whether we should pursue a degree even and masters and PhD. When we look at job applications, they say 2 to 3 years of experience, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with that? So some context, I studied in Melbourne, University of Melbourne. Then I decided to come back and work here.
And I mean, what if you're not even looking for a job? Right? What are you going to do with all that education? And I mean, dropouts have become so normalized.
Yeah. Everyone wants to be Steve Jobs.
Oof. Mark Zuckerberg, maybe. How many of us dreamt of dropping out? No. Heck no.
No. And
I was terrified of my parents.
I started a degree because I didn't know what else to do. On day one of that degree, I decided I didn't want to do that, but I didn't know what else to change to. So I finished the degree and then got a postgrad in it as well, and now work in the field. So that's kind of, you end up where you're at.
Then it panned out.
That's one way.
And then swapped. I started and swapped, but I think I also did a general degree thinking that that'll cover all bases, and then I'll start and see what I like, what sticks.
So I'm going to assume that everybody did very well in 2025 when it comes to return on investment, but we will let you off the hook further on this. So let's talk about something that many of us, and especially I think maybe the early millennials, right, would be one of those toughest decisions you have to make, which is, do you want to form a family or not, right? What is your view of relationships, of love? So maybe because you guys have like different spectrum, maybe tell us a little bit more also about your journey, right? When you were starting out, maybe you had a very different dream perspective, and then how it changed along the way, how you got persuaded or not, the whole 9 yards.
Well, I'm happy to start because I don't have kids. And for the longest time, it was never part of my plan. I was very career focused. And continue to be to some extent. But what I realized is that when so much of that decision actually really depends on the other person as well. And so when you find that person that you can see yourself raising children with, then that may have a significant impact on that decision. That being said, still no kids, no plans, no concrete plans. Just see where it lands, I think is the thing. But it is a little bit easier, I will admit, biologically as a man, to make those decisions into your sort of mid to late 30s than a woman, for sure.
For me, it was relatively straightforward. I always wanted a family, so there was no question. I mean, you could have asked me at 16 and I would have told you I wanted a family. I wanted to be a mum. I had no doubt about that. And my husband also always wanted a family. In fact, he had a very specific mind and name in mind for a baby girl that he wanted. And that, he also told me that in our early 20s. That's what he wanted. So he
get his dream.
He did get his dream.
Nice.
Oh, I was a bit nervous that we weren't going to get there, but we did. For us, that was always the plan. The more challenging thing, and I think what people, regardless of what generation you're in now or who is in your teens as you're in their workforce, the hardest thing is deciding when is the right time. And I get young women ask me all the time, how did you know when the right time was? I feel like I'm just on the edge of something great in my career. When is the right time to step away? And I constantly tell people, don't base it on your work. Please don't choose when to have a family based on your work. Do it based on when it feels right for you and your family, because there's never going to be a perfect time in your career, and your company doesn't care. as much as, like, I love ServiceNow. They've been very, very good to me, and I've always enjoyed working here. But I would not let them dictate when it was the right time for me to have a family. And I think just being really clear around those boundaries at work and at home of what you both want makes it easier, again, like regardless of what generation you're in. I think that's an obvious one. I do think that millennials are more inclined to be a bit more forthright about wanting a balance between family life and work life, and being more open about what they're doing at home as well as what they're doing in the workplace. It's not, you're not sort of trying to, like my parents' generation was more, I'll hide what's going on at home, and I'm absolutely 100% here. No, there's nothing going on in the background there. Whereas we're a bit more, oh my gosh, I'm on my way to pick up so-and-so, they've got a cold, and now like I've got to go via this and get that. And you sort of share your whole life story as you're on a work call. There's a bit more of that openness.
It's true. Our weekly call on a Monday, we now reserve the first 10 minutes for all of these children are sick and they've had to be collected from daycare. And, and then you get into the meeting. But it is true, we do share a lot more. But also in sharing, I find that in my own experience, millennials are more keen to share the parenting and the time off. And so that parental leave, where previous generations, it's maternity leave. And then the father gets maybe 2 days and then they go back to work. Now, no, it's actually truly shared, and it's probably not immediately after the birth that the men will be very useful. It's probably later.
I can. Actually, with twins, he was definitely useful. Yeah, split it half and half. But and I do think, to your point, having those discussions and like that equal partnership. That I think marriage is also maybe evolved, and well, certainly from my perspective, it wasn't so much like finding the perfect person on paper. It's much more about a partnership and a journey that you're on together, rather than, a form that someone fit the criteria you were looking for.
Yeah,
True. I was a lot like you, Josh. I still am. Back in the day growing up, I don't ever remember, I actually didn't like guys, not in the straight and non-straight kind of a way, but I just didn't think about them actively, and it felt like a waste of time and a distraction for a very long time, because I was very sort of into my own plans and goals and things like that. I was like, I've invested all this time in myself, now I want to make something out of it. And then in college, my boyfriend happened. Still don't think of him as a boyfriend. He's still this human being I terribly, terribly care for and I deeply associate with. And we sort of weathered a lot of long distance, short distance. 6 years later, we got hitched. So it was something that happened organically. So for me, it was never about a marriage. In fact, I still don't like the institution very much. Coming in from an Asian setup, more so from South Asian Indian cultures are very similar. I think the gender roles are very entrenched, and I never liked the wife and the husband tag. I felt the husband got way more privileges, and I never kind of wanted to subscribe to that. So obviously, to your point, it's a partnership that sort of makes it work. I think there's very little room for traditional gender roles as millennials, because firstly, when the both of you are earning, there's got to be a shift in the labor, right? There has to be. There's no other way. And for me, the philosophy was either have kids super early or super late. Nothing in between, because kids have a way of sort of overtaking life. I'd seen that with my parents, and they willfully got into it. So I didn't do it too early, so I decided to do it quite late. And what's amazing in our generation, I think, is the science and the amount of information around the science. So I think that was, I took every inch of support that I could get. But that said, I think the role of men has become a lot more deeper, defined, urgent, 50-50, because I don't remember my daughter for the first 48 hours. It was entirely my husband. And I remember on the floor, this was like we were just coming out of COVID, so it was still restrictions. And in the whole floor, there were about 16 of us at that time, 16 of us new moms. And my husband was getting all these brownie points for being so hands-on, for being able to change the diaper. And I'm like, who do you think is going to do it? I'm on anesthesia. So I sort of didn't look at it as a guy and a girl. I'm like, somebody's got to do the job, right? So I think that's changing quite a bit, at least more so when I'm stepping into entrepreneurship. A lot of my idols are people, so let's say Jack Ma or Narayan Murthy, for those who might have heard of him. I mean, they all had wives, right? I don't have a wife. It's a very different construct. So I think family for me was a scary thing for a very long time. I was terrified of the tag of a mom, the motherhood tax, the wife tax. It's very important about the person you're in the journey with. And it's also important from what I see of my friends who are no longer in a marriage, that it's also important to know your priorities, I think, because it's more important to be a whole and healthy person. End of the day, your life doesn't you literally can shorten your life if you're in a compromised marriage, like literally, right? And then you're a shitty human being. You're a shitty person at work. You're not a great parent. You're not a great friend. I mean, what are you doing, right? So I think family was a construct which I had to sort of explore a lot as I was growing up. It wasn't as intuitive as I thought my parents had it. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna be in the other end of the spectrum. For those of you who don't know, I actually got married like 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And just now, thank you. And just now as I was walking in to get the food, I was like, who's that beautiful lady over there? So my wife actually joined. She signed up for this program and then she showed up. But yeah, I think both of us, we kind of have a more millennial point of view on things. Like we date to marry. So we were looking at values, like what do you want to create together? And yeah, we actually had a long distance relationship, quite similar to Nalini as well, for 4 years. Yeah, so she was doing her master's program in Europe, and then I was in Australia. And yeah, we learned about fundamental things like communication, because my generation's a bit more like scattered in that sense. And I think when you are trying to nurture, a relationship across many borders and across time zones, you just learn to sit with being by yourself and treasuring the moments that you're together. Like one thing that I kind of was annoyed when I was doing long distance was when I was seeing other couples, like they're just using their phones on the table. And I was like, man, I wish I was like in your position and where I can speak to Adhika, my wife, and just have a good time. Yeah, so I think that kind of really matured me as an individual, right? Like when you take away the physical interactions, what remains? How do you want to build your relationship when there's less
That's
factors?
actually very powerful, because I was strangely in a position to do long distance before my marriage and in my marriage.
Okay.
So it happened twice. Okay. So my husband and I were doing a hop skip jump of Southeast Asia for almost 4.5 years after marriage. So I think it's actually a very interesting test.
Yeah, it is.
If those of you have the luxury or the privilege to explore it, please do a long distance, because when you take away the physicality of things and when you add in time zones, you still do you still like the person strong enough to want to communicate with them, to sort of think about them, are they boring? Like, do they just pick up the phone and say, what's up? It's got to be more than that to survive, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be way more than that to survive. Like showing up and doing little things. It's actually an interesting test.
It is. Actually, I have a question for Gillian and Nalini as well.
Sure.
Because, we are newlywed. We kind of skirt around the topic of having kids. We're just like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think we are also conscious of how we want to bring a child into this world when there's a lot of VUCA, right? That term.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? Because you mentioned, work should be one side. It shouldn't affect and influence your decision, right? So tell me more. What went through your mind when you were thinking of birthing?
I did not imagine birthing.
Yes.
One tip, don't do that. No, I mean, for us, one thing I would also say, for us, it wasn't straightforward. So it was not an easy process to get pregnant and to have children. So I always say to people, if you're thinking of it, go find out if it's going to be easy for you. Because then you know if you got this window or is it going to be a journey? Because that can actually be quite hard. And in Singapore, honestly, it's very easy to find those things out. You have all your annual health screenings and it's much more, again, it's more open. You're exposed to all that healthcare. And then I think in terms of bringing children into the world, Josh, our third child, was born just at the end of COVID as well. He's 4. And so we were not bringing him into like the most beautiful world environment. But I think we were at a place where we felt comfortable with the setup that we had. We were living away from home. So we don't have grandparents here. We don't have the support network of like old school friends or anything like that here. We have a good crew of people that live in Singapore that we count as friends, some local and some that are foreigners that may or may not stay or go. And then obviously you have the blessing of being able to have domestic helpers here as well. So we had someone helping us at home. But we felt like we were in a stable time in our lives where there was things that we could control. Then if we needed to, we could go home. We did all the fun things of, checking here. If you're a foreigner and you give birth, you go and register your birth, then you go to your country and get the passport, then you take that passport and get your kid a visa to be able to stay in the country. Like there is some process things to do. So for us, it was quite thoughtful, but we also had a really long ramp to get there. So I think it's probably different for everyone. But if you as a couple feel like children is something that you want in your future, step 1, see if you can. And then like find a time where it feels right for you. I think you kind of know. Yeah. I also wanted to give something back and like be able to, I don't know, bring some new life into the world, and they are eternally optimistic. Like if anyone is going to distract you from work, it is a child that is like, unconditionally will love you no matter what. So yeah.
Thank you, Julie.
Very good ad.
I think the last part about children being a distraction in a good way and in a bad way.
Yeah.
It was so true because I think it wasn't, for the longest time, I didn't need my own children because I had my nieces, my nephews. I was quite satisfied with that setup. I'm like, you take care of the dirty diaper, I just come and play with them. And like I mentioned, I was very sort of, I'm planned to a point of being anal. So I said, if I'm not doing it early, I want to do it late. So we knew going in, my husband, and we kept checking in with each other that are we still on for that plan? And I think both of us actually enjoyed marriage more because we gave ourselves so much time to just be individuals in a marriage. I feel a lot of people sort of go from being an individual yesterday, and then you had the wedding ceremony, and then you're a different human being today. And that sort of creates a very different pressure because the person you were talking to before and after is suddenly very different if that happened, right? So we had enough time to grow into it together. And what changed for me was as my timeline was approaching, and I love science, I think she's right, you should go, and both guys and girls should go and first understand if it's going to happen. There's so much, I'm now exposed to so much health tech because of early stage founder friends working in this space. And it's as much guys as much it's women, right? The sedentary lifestyle, the IT jobs. Our generation is screwed. There's no two doubts about it. Like statistically, we're in a bad place. So that means there is a world of pain possibly coming your way, which means you should probably be at a place financially, emotionally, as a couple ready for that journey. And the best part about COVID was we had so much privacy from family.
It's so much time. That was the problem.
No, so when I had the child, like at least in my culture, there's a whole lot of visits and a whole lot of things which I was not very up for. So I found it very surprising that COVID has actually put a focus on the fact that when you are sort of going through that journey of being a new parent, you actually need some time and space to recover. And sometimes culturally, you're not given that. And the repercussions could be as far out as 3 years on or 5 years on that you're facing postpartum depression and things like that. So it could be planned heavily. If it could be, fly by the seat of your pants, see where it goes, see how you feel about it. So there's no one way. You have two perspectives, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if there is a right or a wrong way to do it. I think I've seen lots of people go in both directions. A lot of my friends have kids, and I think one of ours.
For me, career-wise, I was not okay with the break because in my corporate career, there was a lot of diversity and there was so much going on around me. I was a part of Tata Group, LVMH, Diageo, Fortune 500 companies. There was almost a hunt for women. It was
chicks like that.
It was crazy how much they were looking out for female leaders. And for me, it felt like that's not the time I wanted to break momentum or, especially if I had the skills to back it up. So I did not feel like sort of taking that sort of a back seat. So I wanted to give myself that clear ramp, and I gave myself a good decade. And funnily enough, as an entrepreneur, now that I have a child, I find that there is a huge tax on motherhood, even now. It's not as balanced. It's not, so you do have your leaves and all of that, but who's actually taking them? Who's actually showing up? Is there a tax for a guy to step away for 3 to 6 months? Maybe your company is giving the leave, but is your team or your structures ready for somebody to step away and step back into workforce? So I think there's a lot on paper, there's a lot in our intention, but I think in reality, we're still sort of a sandwich generation. We're still stuck navigating the real fear and truth and insecurity of what it means to be in a parenthood. I've been terrified to check my security camera in investor meetings because I'm like, kids, I'm not married. I do this full time.
The other thing I would say is that when people have had kids almost by surprise or like it's happened faster than they expected, I always say to them, it's okay, you've got 9 months to figure it out. Or at that point, maybe you've got 6 months. But you have 6 months to figure it out. Like, there's a lot of things that change overnight in a career, and you've got to figure it out on the fly. Yes, okay, you're bringing a human into the world. It's a pretty big deal. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you've got time. You've got time to figure it out. And I think you get excited and you prepare yourself. And there is something, like I often say, it's the hardest thing I've ever done is parenting, and like the most rewarding thing I've ever done is parenting. They go hand in hand. I think that's the same in career or in life. Quite often the stuff that you have to work really hard for is actually the most rewarding as well.
What's on your mind, Joshua?
No, I think
it's like, oof, I don't know if I'm going to go down this path.
no, it's obviously everyone's.
We can switch topics.
Now, everyone's in a bit of a different position about, why
you wanted
what has been in my mind for a very long time about this topic, because it's one of those things when you're dating, when you're looking at new relationships, what's the expectation of the other person? Do they want kids? Yeah. So then really exploring deep inside of you is like, why would you, what drives you to bring a life into this world? So it's less about, is this the right world? Because every generation has probably said, this world is not good to bring children into, right? Yeah. Every single generation. In fact, I would argue that every generation, it's better and better because of technology, because of quality of life, because of healthcare, because of those things. So we get distracted by these phenomena that are happening, but in reality, actually, it's probably a better time than ever before. But really, why do I want to have that responsibility? Because it is your responsibility, right? Yeah. To raise that child, to make sure that they're a good human being, that they contribute to society, that they set themselves up and for future generations. So I can achieve those things without having my own biological children in various different ways. Yeah. So is there a drive? Is there an impetus for me to have my own biological children? I still haven't found the answer to that.
I think it's actually, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Interesting because we've checked in on each other's headspace about children for a decade, almost. And the answer when we were in our 20s to the world we're in today, the time we are in today, the phase of life we were in today, it kept changing. Right? So that was still very important for us to understand, because it wasn't like, oh, it's a checklist. For a lot of folks, it ends up becoming a checklist activity, almost like a to-do. Yeah, you get a car, you get married, you buy an apartment, you have a kid. So those of us who probably have the luxury to think about it more actively, it also became about how can we continue to parent when the child is going to be in its 30s or 40s, because I lean on my parents so much, even now, for answers. I literally yell at them saying, why don't you know? You're supposed to know, your mom and dad. So I think it's not, relationship with parenting has evolved. I think parents in the previous generation, at least my parents, the boomers, what I see around me, they're a lot more present, involved. So much that they're the village at times, especially if you're thinking of family. We really had to ask ourselves, is that what we are up for? Can we provide all of that when we called upon to do all of that? So it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just about our situation right now saying, do I want a cute little baby? It's about taking care of it for a very long time.
There's a lot of market uncertainty. And it's interesting that you guys sound like you are thriving, and that, maybe you've done some planning, you've got your 10%, 5%, whatever percentage, and you anticipate that if something doesn't really work your way, you will still have a way. Yes. So are there any fears that I want to talk about the future? I want you to maybe share about fears, things that you may be concerned about. It doesn't always have to be about money. And at the same time, dream. Because I think that when people get into their 40s, so this is exciting. You make a lot of decisions, and you may make bad decisions that's going to impact your 40s. But if you make good decisions, your 40s is that period of time that, wow, you're going to rock, you're going to really be able to also cut off time to fulfill your dreams. So I kind of want you to share both about your fears, your dreams, about the future. Maybe more about yourself rather than about your other half and your children. You see, this is unrehearsed, so they actually have to think.
I think I can link it back to something that was just mentioned about the stereotype of disloyalty to companies, which I had an internal chuckle at, because companies aren't particularly loyal to their employees. Yeah. And I think that we're the generation that's kind of made a stand on that. And it puts an importance, and it aligns with social media, and we talk about things like LinkedIn. We now create our personal brand. And so when there's market volatility or new technologies like AI coming in, we don't lean so much on the company that employs us. We don't lean so much on that title or that job description, because we are an individual that brings value, and we can market that value to the world.
Yeah.
And so there's less fear there. And so I think then the fear that we have is more around other things like, you talk about war and civil unrest and safety and the climate and big things, not about survival, not about me
things beyond our
surviving,
control.
about the bigger picture.
I find it very hard not to reference my family in this aspect, because, as I said, like in terms of values, that is like has to be number one for me. And I think I'm very optimistic about the future. I think that they are a generation that will bring something new to the world. I think that they're much more self-regulated will be with screens. And I watch that even, we have interns and things come through the organization, and they already are like, I don't do this at that time, I only do that. Like, they're very self-regulated, which our generation didn't figure out. We're all looking for the instant gratification and whatnot. But I think they're much better with things like that and looking after themselves. So I'm optimistic about the future. I think there's a huge opportunity as we transition into some of the world of AI and other things. There's goodness that will come, and I think with people that understand it better as as they come up into the workforce, then I think there's positive to come from it. My greatest fear is, as raising a family, I'm like, I hope we're giving them enough. I always feel like I'm not quite giving enough. So I think that, like, as a personal fear of mine, that is what I worry about most. It's like sort of spreading too thin across too many different things.
My fear and my dream is actually quite connected. So last week I decided to move on from my HR consulting firm to start my own thing and become a fellow entrepreneur as well. I think a lot of times people say, hey, soon you're like 29, what can people learn from you, right? And I think there's that more assuredness. Because I heard this, I told Christina this as well. When you're 20, people say you're too young. When you're 30, people say you're too young, and so on and so forth. Then when you're 60, people say you're too old, right? So there's always this constant judgment that people put on you. And I think what the Gen Zs have taken from the millennials is that, hey, like, number of years in a company doesn't automatically equate to the experience you have. And the ability to drive outcomes. So I think that's the fear that I have, because I'm newly married as well. But I'm so happy that my wife is supporting me in my dreams to create my own training company, to do deep work, purposeful work with leaders in organizations. So we'll see how that turns out. Yeah.
It's hard to come out of that founder CEO mode sometimes, because when you keep repeating this vision so many times, and your identity is the vision a lot of times, that's what's happened to me for the past couple of years. I think for me, the dream is, and that's what drove me my entire adult life, is that I have the privilege to see the world as it can be. And I have the skills to back it up. So not what it is. Yes, there's a lot of things, climate, war, I think deep fake, there's a lot of things that's scaring us. And this is not now, this has been happening for a long time, grades, exams, everything, right? So I think just having that dream of building the world as it can be and just going out there and being able to do that, that's the dream. And the deepest fear is sort of not being able to go on that journey, right? Not being able to undertake every adventure that you wanted, be it parenthood, be it entrepreneurship, be it just staring at the ceiling, lying in your bed every Sunday, doing nothing, or walking in grass, whatever it may be, right? I think just the fear of not feeling that even in our generation, in our life, with all the privileges, we don't have the freedom to do it. We still have the narrative of, oh, but I don't have, like, we'd heard that from the previous generation, that they sacrificed a lot, they compromised a lot. I think my deepest fear is I don't want that in my life. I don't want to feel like I compromised or I sacrificed. So I think that's it for me.
Fantastic. That makes a beautiful wrap. So our first podcast and podcast Peerty. Thank you for being so spontaneous, for, just taking this on. I know I didn't brief you much. And thank you for the live audience, for also not knowing what you're walking into and didn't know that you were not supposed to make any noise whatsoever during the recording. But what I took away from this is, this thing about millennials. For many people, for a long time, it's sometimes a bad name. Right? And today you've given me language and thought about, well, not that you need defending, but at least now I do have a frame of reference of how to defend millennials. That even the word entitled, I could now take a different spin. And again, we're not trying to generalize. There's definitely a full spectrum of millennials. Millennials grow up just like we did. I mean, what did I know when I was your age?
Yeah.
So therefore, this is something that's been very enjoyable for me. I hope it's been very enjoyable for all of you too.